question is from Stephanie from Las Vegas. She asks what the best way to help young people, teens, who are struggling with self-identity issues. How can we help them see the bigger picture and value their selves and their lives?
What a big question. You understand, for so many different responses. Identity is a quality not taught. So one is always putting oneself at, shall we say, at the effect of someone else. If your parents do not like you, then the chances are you will not like yourself. If you have other challenges, shall we say, many have eating disorders or addiction problems or behavior, many things that are unacceptable to others. However, the identity is using this mechanism to play out their own self-loathing. You understand? So how will one encourage someone to give away that attachment? You understand, there is lifetimes involved in this as well. There are frameworks involved in it. There is social structures and all sorts. And in the main case, most of such people will not listen to a higher order of things. So how will you manage to do this? Only, shall we say, individually, and by holding attention on, shall we call them the higher gifts, if you like. If you meet someone, shall we say, who has certain behavioral challenges, then if you view them as their highest potential, you understand, you look at them and always appreciate them, not tell them what you appreciate, because they will reject it firmly, but you hold it. Whenever you see them, you look at them and appreciate what it is they have holding. Do you follow? You look at them from your higher point. You look at and see their soul. Do you understand what I mean? And you encourage others. In other words, if someone is putting someone down, then you point out what you can see. Not to them, not to embarrass them, because they will be embarrassed if anybody stands up for them. All of it. Do you follow? It is within the conscious magnetic frame. You are encouraging with the mental appreciation for them to pick it up and start to see their own value.
So by appreciating them, is it the vibrational energy that they are,
of course,
that they're going to pick up, rather than if we verbally said, you're an amazing artist, they would then reject that. So instead of naming it,
of course, one might look at the art and go, wow, That's interesting. That is amazing. I didn't think you would be capable. You understand? You see, if I say that I didn't think you'd be capable, then the only response is, and why not? Do you understand? It is beginning to undermine their own ideas of themselves. Do you understand? Even in certain fashion, but you have to hold the higher vision first. You have to be appreciating them beyond their ability to upset you, which they will attempt, of course. They will try to do things that will distance you, or they will try to hide away, and so forth and so on. Do you understand? Everything has an ability. You understand? Let us take one example. Someone who has eating disorder. What a great ability to keep on with something as dangerous as that. It is an amazing ability, not doing that, but to do something else. You follow? What an amazing ability if you can see it and you can hold that ability. What great ability. I really can see the value in having such an ability myself. Of course, I wouldn't be using it to waste away. I'd be using it for a more productive mechanism. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so appreciating what there is maybe in their struggles, or like you say, if they had an eating disorder.
Let us take away struggle. You understand? Okay. Because if you are watching them, appreciating them through their struggle, then you are simply putting struggle in to the mental field as well. Let us say we are looking for appreciating even, shall we say, the lie of their hair. Even the shape of their nose is so appealing. You understand? Just little things, but they are much easier to target. You understand? Because it is hard for someone who doesn't like themselves to defend when they realize the thought is, what amazing ears. Do you understand? You can't fight that because it is eating only at a small portion. Do you follow? So appreciating anything.
Okay. But doing it on a vibrational level.
On a vibrational
rather
level.
Than verbal. Yeah.
Of course. Being always being positive.
Okay. Thank you. Now, Gillian from British Columbia in Canada. So systematic change is a slow-moving process. Would you recommend trying to work with children more in an effort to speed up this change?
I want to say in the last 5 years, look at the systemic change that climate has brought about. Nothing is slow given enough energy to it. I want to say this. Many things seem to be a certain way, but perhaps they are less the way we want to view them than in reality. Social change happens within its own time. The children will be their own mechanism, and each person should, shall we say, work within their own framework. Do you understand? If you want to change something, change self.
Mm-hmm.
Do you understand? Lifting yourself and learning appreciation for everyone and everything. Forgiveness and gratitude. All of these things have been spoken about. Be grateful for your own life. Take off the judgments you have on anyone else who is failing your failing to meet your standards. You understand? Because better to forgive, better to realize that many people are dealing with their own selves. Everything in the end comes into balance. So I want to say, if your job is, and you are called upon to work with children, then do so. Do so. Appreciate them. Give them the benefits of your wisdom. But don't expect them to take it on board. Do you understand? Because they have their own experience. They have to find their own way, like you had to find your own way, like your parents had to find their own way, like everyone has been finding their own way, looking at those ahead and rejecting what stupid people. Do you follow what I mean? History is filled with us that could do better than they did. Do you follow what I mean? Hindsight and all that. So I want to say, in this question, support, appreciate, be grateful for what you have, and allow the new to come in. Allow yourself to see what needs to be addressed.
Okay. Thank you. Grant from Waiheke in New Zealand would like to know, is there a conscious effort to reduce the population, and is the fragile nature of our future the reason why those who wish to are planning to escape to another planet?
All of this is sort of interesting because one chooses to be in the physical reality at the time that you are. Many have appeared time and again to want to eliminate someone else. Of course, the consequences of this are karmic. Do you understand? So whatever one wants to do will, of course, in consciousness backfire. One will get to experience that which one proposes for others. So I want to say, be careful what you are doing that is affecting what appears to be others, because there are more frameworks than the single framework we are talking about. Of course, there are others who wish to escape to other planets, to other dimensions, and so forth. That has been occurring throughout human history. Some of them have even managed to accomplish that. Whole tribes, whole modern tribes, civilizations have simply shifted focus from one realm to an entirely different one. And for some of these, they are still in existence. Everything, of course, comes with its consequences and so forth.
Okay.
I think that is enough to answer that question.
Okay. I'm curious to know the population that we have currently on planet Earth. Is this one of the causes of our climate change from a conflict energy perspective?
Human beings have to come to terms with unity, with equality. That is the biggest challenge that has been brought about. You have attempted so many times to suppress difference. You have fought over differences of all kinds, and you continue to do so. Of course, as the population increases, so does the conflict.
Okay.
And shall we say, you want to annihilate others, but you do not want to be annihilated by others. You understand? Of course, that is an impossibility, because the very concept creates enemies. And enemies will always work towards finding ways of annihilating their enemies, and so on it goes. You understand, you think that you can annihilate, shall we say, some poor Indian. Shall we give an example in your Amazon jungle? But there are tribes in that jungle that have already learned the control of some diseases. If they were willing to release that amongst the general population, they could credibly eliminate the entire planet except for themselves.
Wow.
Now, think of that. Because they are immune to it, and everyone else is at great risk. You understand, that is why the Western world has become more and more fearful of what you call pandemic. That is unbelievably expensive. I am not going to call them viruses, because that is not what they are. I want to call them neurological transmittable disease. It is, shall we say, transmitted because it has what is called neurotoxin.
Yeah.
Difficult, extremely difficult to control. So I want to say that there are always difficult challenges.
So some people believe, though, that we may need a population cull, a large loss of the current population in order to reduce the impact that the human race is having on the climate. Are you saying... Sorry.
I will say this. The planetary guardian has already begun taking control of this. You understand, climate change is the very mechanism for eliminating too many people.
Okay.
It is not that there is not enough space for the number of people. It is that the number of people are damaging the planet. And as such, then culling them or stopping their damage is imperative for the continued evolution of the planet. Therefore, planetary guardian will continue to target those at mostly risk to its own well-being.
And is the planetary guardian that you speak of, is that the life force of our planet?
So we can say that. It is, shall we say, it is the life soul of the planet. It has its own personality as such at a higher frame of reference. So each planet has its own principles, if you like.
Okay. And because we're not changing our behavior, human interaction with the environment, we're abusing it, the planetary guardian is taking over. And climate change
that climate change is the result of many years of abuse and an imbalance in human structure. Of course, the most at risk are the poorer, but in later frames of reference, you will discover the wealthy nations are inherently more at risk because they are not prepared for what is the result. The planetary guardian is not attacking them as such. It is simply responding with what is the response to their own abuse.
Yeah, which we're seeing in these big climatic events like fires and earthquakes and flooding and
storms and so forth. And human consciousness does not truly consider what is, shall we say, the overall patterns of thought and consciousness in the places most brought into conflict. In other words, where these events occur is focused on the consciousness in those places.
Really? Okay. Interesting. All right. I think that's enough for today. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap things up?
I think we have talked in a wide range of subjects. I want to perhaps tie it up because it is difficult to discuss such events when the solid world that seems to be the platform for it is in so many levels of separate focus. You understand the universes on universes on universes. So it is often different answer for different viewpoints.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is my final statement, if you like.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Then thank you for your time and for the many people asking such interesting perspectives. So thank you and good afternoon, good evening.